Blog Talk Radio. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medlock Post radio show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. Thank you for joining the show today, and here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Richard G. Medlock. That was the United States Army Military Band with their rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. Yeah, I'm stuttering and stammering. This time change is just kind of sleepy this morning. Today is November 7th, 2022. It's episode 79. The United States Veterans Week. Yes, that is correct. It is Veterans Week. Friday is Veterans Day, November 11th, at 11 o'clock, 11 minutes after. All right, so I also want to welcome today you vast right-wing conspirators. I want to welcome the deplorables. I want to welcome those who cling to your gun, to your God and your guns. And especially now, to you idiots that recognize socialism when you see it, and also to patriotic, God-fearing people. That's right. Joe Biden called protesters holding signs against socialism and calling Biden a socialist idiots. So welcome to our audience. You are very welcome because you recognize socialism and that it's no good. All right, Veterans Week, ladies and gentlemen. So the most appropriate thing besides the Star-Spangled Banner is to play the United States Armed Forces medley. All right, Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. I guess I'll have to look up and see if there's a Space Corps music yet. I don't know if that thing's even going to get off the ground. All right, Veterans Week. We're going to be telling stories all week, playing patriotic music, and we're going to do something special at the end of each show in honor of Veterans Week. Now, Veterans Week, or Veterans Day, we honor all those who have ever served in the United States military. Now, Memorial Day, we honor those that gave the ultimate sacrifice while serving. Military Day, we honor those that are currently serving. So that's the distinction between the three. And, I look back in my ancestors. That's the beauty of doing family search, genealogy work. You learn all these fascinating stories. And I have a lot of ancestors that have served this country, from the Revolution to the Civil War and World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq, and Persian Gulf, and so forth. And we're going to tell some stories, and some of our guests might tell some stories about their ancestors. And special note, Wednesday, November 9th, the day after the election, we will be here with Diane Canada from Lady Up America and Tom Herron, Up with America. So that's going to be a very interesting program. We're going to schedule that for a full 2 hours. So we're not going to miss anything come Wednesday. So you will not want to miss that program on Wednesday. It will start at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which is now regular time, 9 a.m. Central Time, and so forth. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Yeah, I desire to say a few words about a most serious worldwide threat. In the Old Testament, we read, quote, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge," unquote. Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. We need to, as in the Old Testament times, we need knowledge today. We need to know our enemies. we must assess clearly and accurately the perils that face the free. At the same time, we must assure ourselves of the knowledge which brings confidence and trust in our ability and that of our friends around the world to face the future, not in fear, but with vigilance. From knowledge comes strength, and from strength comes the power to preserve freedom both at home and abroad. Dedicated men and women have worked tirelessly to help the free world understand better the deadly conflict between good and evil, which is constantly going on. We have an enormous responsibility here in the United States to help maintain peace and freedom and to push back the somber clouds of war threats caused by international tensions. The power of communism depends to a large extent on public ignorance. Knowledge is a dangerous thing to totalitarian states, but knowledge is strength to a free people. There are some fundamental facts which must never be overlooked. Lest it be said of this our land, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. We must never forget exactly what communism really is. Communism is far more than an economic system. It is a total philosophy of life, atheistic and completely opposed to all that we hold dear. We believe in an all-wise creator. Communism teaches that everything in existence came about as a result of ceaseless motion of the forces of nature. We believe in the dignity of man. Communism holds that human beings are but graduate beasts. Hence, communism does not hesitate to destroy those who stand in its way. The Russian communists, in their rise to power, liquidated millions of their fellow countrymen. The Chinese communists wiped out tens of millions, perhaps as many as 30 million. We believe in a moral code. Communism denies innate right or wrong. As W. Cleon Skousen has said in his timely book, The Naked Communist, the communist has convinced himself that nothing is evil which answers the call of expediency. This is a most damnable doctrine. People who truly accept such a philosophy have neither conscience nor honor. Force, trickery, lies, broken promises are wholly justified. We believe in religion as a mode of life resulting from our faith in God. Communism contends that all religion must be overthrown because it inhibits of world revolution. Earl Browder, a longtime leader of the Communist Party in the USA, said, quote, "We communists do not distinguish between good and bad religions because we think they are all bad," unquote. The major communist objective, make no mistake about it, is to destroy any society that adheres to the fundamentals of spiritual, economic, and political freedom, the integrity of man. As the leading exponent of the free society, the United States is thus the primary target for Marxian-Lenin philosophy. Internationally, communism seeks to isolate us from the rest of the world, the free world. Here at home, communism ceaselessly pursues the disintegration of the American way of life. It strives to use education, science, literature, art, even the churches, to undermine our free society. Suppose for a moment that this country fell under communist control. What would be the fruits of this calamity? What can you and I do to help meet this grave challenge from a godless, atheistic, cruelly materialistic system to preserve our God-given free way of life. First, let us all prize the treasures we have in this country. This is a choice land of all of America, choice above all others. Blessed by the Almighty, our forefathers have made and kept it so. It will continue to be a land of freedom and liberty as long as we are able and willing to advance in the light of sound and enduring principles of right. Let us all do our part to stay free. Let us stand eternal watch against the accumulation of too much power in government. Here in our free land, let us preserve a true climate in which man can grow. Third, let us all reaffirm our patriotism, our love of country. Patriotism is more than flag waving and brave words. It is how we respond to public issues. Let us rededicate ourselves as patriots in the truest sense. Fourth, let us all help to build peace. True peace springs from within. Its price is righteousness, and to achieve righteousness, we must so conduct ourselves individually and collectively as to earn the loyalty and devotion of other men. Finally, let us all rededicate our lives and our nation to do the will of God. With each of you, I love this nation. It is my firm belief that the God of heaven guided the founding fathers in establishing it for his particular purposes. But God's purpose is to build free people of character, not physical monuments to the material accumulations. Nations that truly love God, love freedom, love God. History is replete with examples of once powerful nations that have forgotten God. No nation ripened in iniquity can long endure. Quote, righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Unquote. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 34. We in this land have a rich heritage of freedom. It has rewarded us beyond our brightest dreams. The key to further progress, the key to national security, is the preservation of the initiative, energy, and resourcefulness of our people. Our material progress is merely a byproduct of our freedom. Our God-given freedom, a basic principle of religious truth, is still the most powerful force on the face of the earth. The people of the world long for peace. We know that knowledge of the enemy teaches us wariness and caution. We know, too, that we speak for millions and millions of suppressed people, all those everywhere who want peace with human dignity. May I conclude by saying that any system which deprives men of their free agency, which weakens the home and family, which depends on butchery for power, which denies all moral responsibility, which holds that man lives by bread alone, and which denies the existence of God, is of the devil. That is the communist philosophy. Knowledge of the enemy and knowledge of ourselves gives us the strength to fight the good fight for freedom and world peace. May we never become my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Ezra Taft Benson, stand up for freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, those are sincere words, and they're great words. I want to play this, and then we'll come back to some of those words.
Isn't it once again time to renew our compact of freedom? To pledge to each other, all that is best in our lives, all that gives meaning to them, for the sake of this our beloved and blessed land. Together, let us make this a new beginning. Let us make a commitment to care for the needy, to teach our children the virtues handed down to us by our families, to have the courage to defend those values and virtues and the willingness to sacrifice for them. Let us pledge to restore in our time the American spirit of voluntary service, of cooperation, of private and community initiative, a spirit that flows like a deep and mighty river through the history of our nation.
Ronald Reagan, 1980. Great words that fit right into what I just did my opening monologue about. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. The communists know this, ladies and gentlemen, and you've heard me talk about the goals of communists that came out of Skousen's The Naked Communist, and how they were going to use the schools and political system and art and media and everything else to destroy the values and morals of America. And we've talked about how they succeeded in many ways. And here we look at the prophet Hosea warning us, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. It's interesting when we look around America today, how people talk about how much they know, but it's wrong. The Democratic Marxists know a lot of things, but it's wrong. And we're going to probably cover a few of those things today. And then dedicated men and women have worked tirelessly to help a free world understand better the deadly conflict. A lot of those are the veterans in this country. They've been to foreign wars. They've seen what a dictatorship, a communist or socialist regime, totalitarianism, Marxism. They've seen firsthand how it will destroy a country for no good. You know, there's a thing been going around social media for years and years, and it says all the successes of socialism, and then it shows a blank piece of paper. And that is correct. The only success is to those that were in power, and they ended up controlling and destroying lives and the economies and everything else. Religion has been under attack for years and years. We know that. We do believe in a moral code. Communism is what, like I said, what's expedient for me right now. Do we not see that from the Democratic Marxists in this campaign, especially in the last week? I'm going to go over a few things. They lie. They stand there and lie. And they're making things up because it's expedient to them. The Earl Browder, a longtime leader of the Communist Party of the USA, says, we think all religions are bad because you're not worshiping us. You need to worship us. They know God. They know He exists. And they know that if you keep relying on Him, they won't be successful. They understand that. That's why they tirelessly attack religion and your faith. And where is it? Let me read those last few things again. Communism seeks to isolate us from the rest of the free world. Yes. Communism ceaselessly pursues the disintegration of the American way of life. All right. But let's go back to this. We know Two, that we speak for millions and millions of suppressed people, all those everywhere who want peace with human dignity. May I conclude by saying that any system which deprives men of their free agency, which weakens the home and family, which they have done since the 1950s. They've tried to take away your free agency since Woodrow Wilson was president, which depends on butchery for power. Butchery, ladies and gentlemen. Let's throw abortion in there. That's butchery of a human life. And look at the many women and even men that they have gained control over, power over, because they have them thinking that that is a right that they have to murder. Which denies all moral responsibility. Oh, no bail. You murder somebody? Fine, we'll see at trial. No problem. We're going to let you out of jail. What? Because we don't have enough room? No, we're going to let you out of jail. BLM and Antifa have not had to pay any consequences for what they did in 2020 before and since. Not one thing. They've actually gained in power, which holds that man lives by bread alone. Now, you don't need any luxuries. You don't need a home. You don't need a car unless it's an electric vehicle, and which denies the existence of God. When you deny the existence of God, especially if you at one point believe that, I pray for your soul. But this is the communist philosophy. They want to destroy everything that is good. They want to take from you not only your life and property, but they want your soul as well. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what tomorrow's election is about. Freedom. And we're going to get into some of those things as we get along here. Now, I mentioned earlier about ancestors. And I go way back with ancestors. My first one that we're aware of that came to the Americas came on the Mayflower. William Bradford is a second cousin, like 13, 16 times removed. He led that colony for 30 years. Wrote an extensive diary and books about what went on there. Now, he wasn't the first leader. The first leader lasted about a year, and then Mr. Bradford took over. Now, you say, well, he didn't fight in any wars. Really? He left England because he was being persecuted for his religion. That was the war going on in Europe at the time. So he came here and started over, he and the others that came on the Mayflower. I have others, Revolutionary War, even before. And that's a story for another day, but Alexander Spotswood out of Virginia. There are things in Virginia named after him. He was governor, appointed governor by the King of England from 1718 to 1721 or 22. There's some interesting stories there. But I want to focus on veterans. Veterans. So let me tell you a story about my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, Walter James Moore Sr., born in 1885. He fought. He was in the Army, went to Europe during World War I, and fought in the Battle of Argonne Forest. If you're not familiar with that battle, you need to look it up. It was a horrendous battle. Thousands upon thousands of lives were lost on a daily basis. Now, he also, in World War I, the Germans used mustard gas. And the thing there was, when it came in, you went up, because it was a heavy gas. It went down to the ground. It's heavier than air. You climbed whatever you could climb to get above it. Well, he didn't get high enough one time and got some mustard gas damage in his lungs that eventually, down the road, killed him. He suffered most of his life because of that damage and eventually killed him. He spent the last year or so of his life in a VA hospital. But he would tell stories of the war. And in the Battle of Argonne Forest, he was wounded. And others around him were wounded or killed. And they're in the mud, they're in the rain. He laid there for 1 week before our forces were able to rescue him. Now, most of the people around him were dead by this time. And what he did to survive, because he couldn't walk, he couldn't get out of there, is he pulled the bodies of the dead soldiers around him and over him so the Germans could not find him. They would just think, oh, here's a pile of dead bodies, we'll just keep going. That's how my grandfather survived to become my grandfather. These are the men and women that we honor on Veterans Day. They went and they fought. They had a call. Even though evil men in this world contrived these wars for their personal gain or their personal glory, men and women went and fought from both sides. And my grandfather did that in World War I. So we honor our military personnel, past and present. When I was growing up, we had Donaldson Air Force Base here in town. It pulled out in 1962, 63. They shut it down, and now it's a big Donaldson Center. Lockheed Martin is out there. They have a contract to repair a lot of military jets and helicopters and so forth. You see the big C-5s and all that stuff flying around here, helicopters all the time. They're here to be repaired. It's big business out there. Because of that, and of course, that when it was originally, it was the Army Air Corps, which is my uncle, my dad's brother, went into the Army Air Corps right after December 7th. My dad signed up with the Navy. He lasted 14 days. And you say, well, what happened? The food. My dad loves telling the story. Of course, he passed away in 2004. But he said the first 4 days I was surviving. But he says, then my stomach just hit me. And he'd had stomach problems most of his life. They just didn't know what it was. Well, come find out that he had a small ulcer. And the military food about killed him. So he spent the last 10 days in the infirmary saving his life. Well, they did. And he came home. And but they found out he had an ulcer. So he didn't serve. But my uncle served in the Army Air Corps. And then it became the Air Force at the latter part of World War II or right after. And then, but anyway, so when we would drive around town, growing up, we'd have all these soldiers were out there hitchhiking around town to go somewhere. Well, my dad would always, every time, stop and pick them up. even if they were on the other side of the road going the other way, he would turn around and go pick them up. And he told my brother and I, you always pick up these soldiers. They're serving our country, and we need to honor them and to help them as much as possible. So as my brother and I learned to drive, we knew to pick up the soldiers. And we did. And they were always grateful and kind. Some would even offer to pay for gas, and nope, don't do that. All right. Those were good times. Now, I talked to you about I welcomed idiots who recognize socialism. Here's a story, folks. Biden on people calling him a socialist. He says, quote, "Give me a break. What idiots." In his speech, he was saying, Social Security and Medicare are more than government programs. They're a promise. They're a promise. Work hard and contribute, and when the time comes, things will be easier for you. I know everybody out there on Social Security and Medicare, I'll give you time to stop laughing. Okay? It is laughable, folks. All righty? Work hard and contribute, and when the time comes, things will be easier for you. Says, well, that's the first time I've ever heard it called a promise. All right. He goes on and he says, it's a rock-solid guarantee, an ironclad commitment. Generations of Americans have counted on it, and it works. I loved those signs when I came in. Socialism. Give me a break. What idiots. No one ever doubts I mean what I say. Sometimes, of course, I say all that I mean. Really? So the dozen or so protesters standing outside an elementary school were bearing signs that ranged from "Let's go Brandon" to "Where's Nancy," as well as "Socialism sucks." So that's all he's got. The other day he called a group stupid. All right. Now, as opposed to Mike Pompeo that was at Yale the other day, and three guys come in to where he's speaking and start yelling stuff and you know, you're a monster, you killed the Iranian general Soleimani and a few other things. And he's going, you know, this is why America is great. They can come in here and say what they want to say. Didn't call them idiots, didn't call them stupid. He recognized the fact that they had the freedom to do what they did. But not Biden and the Marxist Democrats. They call us idiots. They call us stupid. They call us deplorables, vast right-wing conspiracy nuts. We cling to our God and our guns, and that makes us bad, folks. Where do you hear some other things Obama had to say, I think yesterday, Saturday or yesterday? So Pompeo says, isn't this great? You can say what you want to say. That's what's on the line tomorrow, folks. Freedom. Do you want the dreadful darkness that is coming from the Democratic Marxists, or do you want the beautiful light of freedom? That's your choice tomorrow. And if you think it's about just about abortion and just about inflation, sorry, there's a bigger picture there. Now, Biden, over the weekend, says coal plants all across America will be shut down, replaced with wind and solar. I know if you hadn't heard that, I'll give you a minute to stop laughing again. All coal plants all across America will be shut down, replaced with wind and solar. Biden argued that it's cheaper to generate electricity from wind and solar than it is from coal. Now, I don't know where he gets his numbers, but let's just say what's expedient for us. Biden said Friday that coal plants are too expensive to operate, and we're going to be shutting these plants down in order to shift to wind power, in a comment that drew criticism from Republican National Committee. Well, yeah, it drew comments from just about everybody else in America. He says, I was in Massachusetts about a month ago on the site of the largest old coal plant in America. And Biden said at an event in Carlsbad, California. So he's in California talking about Massachusetts. He says, guess what? It costs them too much money. They can't count. No one is building new coal plants because they can't rely on it, even if they have all the coal guaranteed for the rest of the existence of the planet. So it's going to become a wind generation, and all they're doing is it's going to save them a hell of a lot of money, and using the same transmission line that they transmitted the coal-fired electric on, we're going to be shutting these plants down across America, yeah, if you can make sense of that, I'll try to. It's amazing. I talked about this a few weeks ago. For a fracking oil drill pump, it takes about 5 acres of land. One oil well, 5 acres of land. For the same amount of energy comes out of 5 acres for an oil well, it would take 5 square miles of wind turbines. 5 square miles. Show me the cost saving, Mr. Biden. Is there that kind of land available in Massachusetts? Common sense, folks. Common sense. Republican National Committee came out and said Joe Biden celebrates coal plant workers losing their jobs. It's interesting. They celebrated when they shut down the XL pipeline, so why shouldn't they celebrate here? Does all of this sound familiar to you? Shutting down coal? That's correct. Obama and Biden, when Obama was president, did the same thing. We're going to shut you down. Well, they're still trying to do it. To satisfy who? A handful of eco-terrorists and some globalists. Not the American people. Oh, let's not do anything good for the American people, I think is the mantra of the Biden administration. Heaven forbid we do anything that benefits American people except for our cronies. In 2020, candidate Biden suggested that coal miners facing an economy where their job is potentially phased out should learn to program. Do you remember that? Anybody who can go down 3,000 feet into a mine sure as hell can learn how to program as well. Biden said in a New Hampshire campaign again. Then he says, but we don't think of it that way. Anybody who can throw coal into a furnace can learn how to program, for God's sake. This is Biden. This is how much he thinks of you. Oh, just go get another job. We'll get to talking about go get another job here in a little bit. Touting falling unemployment rates in West Virginia, Jean-Pierre noted how the administration will continue to push for moving away from fossil fuels without leaving anyone behind. Well, I don't know how you do that. She said under President Biden, now, I hope you're sitting down. This is the White House spokeslady. Under President Biden, oil and natural gas production has increased, and we are on track to hit the highest production in our country's history next year. And then why is Joe Biden out there threatening the oil industry and energy industry to produce more? No, we are far from our history's top oil and natural gas production. We reached that under Donald J. Trump, and you have done everything you can to shut it down. She continued, folks, have you stopped laughing yet? Okay. He is determined to make sure that this transition helps all Americans in all parts of the country with more jobs and better opportunities. It's a commitment he has advanced since day one. No one will be left behind, period. He didn't commit this to day one. You know how many jobs he shut down his first day in office? A couple of 100,000 minimum just the first day. But who else isn't happy, supposedly unhappy about Biden wanting to shut down coal? Joe Manchin of West Virginia. That's correct. Manchin demands Biden apologize for outrageous coal comments. He says, time he learns a lesson. Well, Joe, maybe it's time you learned a lesson and understand you can't even trust your fellow Democrats. They promised you that they would give you your permits for that pipeline in West Virginia. Where is that permit, Joe Manchin? It's not there. They keep voting it down. I like this word. Scathing Manchin statement come just days before key midterms with control of the Senate up for grabs. Joe Manchin Saturday demanded an apology from Biden, saying coal plants all across America will be shut down in a scathing statement just days before. President Biden's comments are not only outrageous and divorced from reality, they ignore the severe economic pain the American people are feeling because of rising energy costs. Manchin continues, comments like these are the reason the American people are losing trust in President Biden and instead believes he does not understand the need to have an all-in energy policy that would keep our nation totally energy independent and secure. You see this? What's wrong? Joe Manchin saying, what's wrong with what we have, Biden? It was going great under Trump. Energy independent. We didn't need a thing from anybody else. Wow. Does Joe Manchin believe that? Then you should become a Republican or at least an independent and walk away from the Democratic Marxists. If you really believe that. But who can really believe Joe Manchin? Everything he does has a political bank policy. What can I get by complaining? You see, he wants something out of it. When he gets it, he goes back to being a Democratic Marxist. Again, House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre stated, responded to Manchin's press release, quote, President Biden knows that the men and women of coal country built this nation. They powered its steel mills and factories, kept its homes and schools and offices warm. They made this the most productive and powerful nation on earth. So why do you want to shut it down? Because you belong to eco-terrorists. I can't read the rest of it. It's just phenomenal what the Democrats, they'll say one thing and do just the exact opposite. Just the exact opposite. Watch what they do, not what they say. Now, let me play this. Here we're out there. Inflation is high. Gas is high. We're looking at gas shortages, diesel shortages. Heating costs this winter are going to be astronomical. My wife came home from the grocery store the other day and says, it just keeps going up. The prices keep going up week after week. This is what people are focused on right now. So they're out there listen to John Kerry out there campaigning for Biden.
The company and General Motors and other companies around the world have spent hundreds of billions of dollars retooling their plants. Why? Because they're going electric. And by 2035, that's all we're going to have in America. Electric cars being manufactured, not on the road, but being sold in new cars. That's President Biden's goal. By 2035, he wants the power sector of America to be carbon free.
Got that? All we're going to make in America is electric vehicles. Now, I'm going to ask a question. How stupid is that? We are not going away from fossil fuels. Now, somebody told me that's not the right name, but we've used it forever and ever. But these are resources that God has given to us and the technology, how to get them out of the ground and use them. Now, Joe Biden had come out here the other day and said, we're going to do away with coal power plants, but until we build a nuclear power plant nearby, they will function until then to replace the energy. That would make complete sense. We haven't built a new power plant in this country since the 70s, maybe early 80s, nuclear or anything. Now, especially nuclear. There have been coal plants built, but for specific purposes. All right, so nuclear power is the cleanest energy out there. Oh, but if it blows up, it blows up. We haven't had that happen. They had it in Russia, Chernobyl. Common sense, folks. Common sense. Yeah, let's build some nuclear power plants. There's still a need for coal. There's still a need for oil and natural gas. But no, they want to shut it all down and put up wind turbines and have everybody putting solar panels on your homes and businesses. Now, let me ask you, those that live in Maine and Wisconsin and Michigan and North and South Dakota and Wyoming and Colorado and in Idaho, how much sun do you have in the wintertime? Not a lot, huh? And if it's snowing or cloudy, that's not going to help much. There are some areas. I lived in Arizona, in Phoenix, when the solar panels were coming out. For Arizona, it made a lot of sense. They don't get a lot of rain. I've got friends here in upstate South Carolina that have solar panels, but they tell me when it rains for 3 or 4 days, those panels run out of energy. So we have to turn on our power. Now, if I were to build a home today, I would put solar panels up, basically for a backup. Now, this is what I would do. I had a conversation with a home builder several months ago. And I asked him, I said, if I wanted to build a home, can I put a propane, one of these huge, large commercial propane tanks in my backyard and use that for my energy source? And he says, yeah, and you can bury it. I says, you can? He says, we've built several houses that have put propane tanks underground in their backyard, and that is their energy source. They don't have to rely much on the power grid. And you put in propane gas generators that kick in when the power kicks off. He says we're building a lot of homes like that. And yeah, they're tied into the grid, and they also have a few solar panels. Now, that makes sense. But no, we want everybody to put a wind turbine in their backyard. Again, I ask you, do you know how big those blades are? They're anywhere from 80 to 120 feet long. So how many backyards will that fit in? Because you've got 3 blades. So if they're 120 feet plus the middle section, which is probably 20 or 30 feet or more, then you have almost 300 feet of space that you need for that thing to turn. Wow. So you take these modern day subdivisions, that's not going to work. Well, you won't need the big one like that. You can put in a smaller one. How small? How's it going to work? Well, if the wind doesn't blow for a week. See, there's all these questions we need to be asking. If we stood there and asked Biden all these questions, he wouldn't be able to answer them. He'd call us stupid and idiot. Time's flying here, folks. This is what we're voting on tomorrow, folks. All right, Biden's regulations cost the economy $309 billion in the first 2 years. His regulations took $309 billion out of the economy, and they want us to think that our economy is growing. Now, in the first 2 years of Obama, it was $204 billion. So it's up 50%. Right? $100 billion, $105 billion up from 204. That's up 50% from, and this goes back to what I've been telling you. They knew that when they got back in the office, they had to accelerate their plans to destroy America. And because of these added regulations, it will add $5 trillion to the national debt by 2031 of those regulations. And that's what's killing businesses. You can look these up. Type in Biden regulations cost $309 billion in first 2 years. This is, I expected the Biden administration to rival the Obama administration in terms of regulatory costs, but so far they have exceeded these expectations. Bosch, who is Director of Regulatory Policy for the American Action Forum, said the current administration's comment to addressing climate change through regulations rather than new legislation from Congress means that we should expect to see these costs continue to climb. And you can take that to the bank, folks. They're going to keep just attacking the American economy, attacking the energy industry, etc. How about this, folks? Over the last few days, we saw Jack Tapper lose his job. He's gone. Shepard Smith, gone. Short stint at CNN after leaving Fox. He's gone. Who was the day? Don Lemon started a new morning show. It was dead on arrival, folks. Nobody watched it. A couple of other ladies have been fired. Do you see what's happening? The networks may be waking up to the fact we got to get these radicals out of here or we're going to lose our network. We're losing money. Nobody's watching us. Our ad revenue is going down. Phew. So Joy Reid from MSNBC, who, anyway, she's exercising her free speech. And folks, again, we are idiots and we are stupid in their minds. Joy Reid claims everyday Americans never heard the word inflation until GOP made it up in campaign issue. Laughing. Everyday Americans never heard of inflation. Apparently, this woman lives in a bubble, and somebody buys her food, buys her gas, buys her clothes. She has no concept of what the real world is like. She said it is not part of normal lexicon for Americans. Oh, go out on the street and say this to the people in working day Americans. This is discussed every day. It's their number one concern going into the election. And Joy Reid wants us to make us think that the GOP made it up. Now, we can, if we have enough time, we'll talk about some things that they have made up in their campaigns. Shoo. All right. Let's take a quick break. I want to play this from John Wayne. And it's almost 4 minutes, but I want you to hear this. It's called The People.
What makes the word America ring with the sound that brightens the air? It's people, her people who have done their own thing with blood, sweat, and tears and a prayer.
Louis Armstrong on a golden trumpet, Marian Anderson singing the Lord's Prayer, the savage power of Jack Dempsey, the quiet pride of Jesse Owens, Merle Haggard singing Okie from Muskogee, Chet Atkins picking the guitar, Bing Crosby at Christmas time, and Charles Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic alone.
A sharecropper's son, an immigrant boy, a hobo who wrote all the rails, the magic guitar of an old country boy, a lone eagle who pioneered trade.
Sandy Koufax staring down at a batter while Willie Mays chants his "Say Hey." Maria Tallchief gliding in Swan Lake, while Fred Astaire dances on gossamer wings. Billy Graham bringing God to millions. And Jonas Salk bringing hope to the world. Mahalia Jackson closing her eyes in devotion. And Johnny Cash singing at the White House.
What makes the word America ring with the sound that brightens the air? It's people, her people who have done their own thing with blood, sweat, and tears and a prayer.
Willie Shoemaker booting swaps home, while Eddie Arcaro wins the Triple Crown on citation. Arnie Palmer winning the Open, while Eddie Arnold is winning hearts. Tom Harmon threading the field for Michigan, while Bob Morrison plays his heart out for Troy. Kate Smith singing God Bless America, and Irving Berlin who wrote it. Then there are those unheralded, whose dedication to our country is strong and true. The builders of America, those who make her factories hum, the loggers of her great forests, the men who labor deep in her mines, and the man who works with his hands, the farmer who toils from dawn to dusk, those who carry her bountiful yield to all the states of our Union, the railroaders, our merchant sailors, the airline pilots, and those modern knights of the road, the truck drivers. These and others like them have earned their right to walk proudly with the knowledge that their goals were achieved through honest toil and in the spirit of harmony found in the people working together in this great land.
What makes the word America ring with the sound that brightens the air?
It's people, her people, who have done their own thing with blood, sweat, and tears and a prayer.
Oh, that's beautiful. Some of you, there's some names that you don't recognize because they go back in the 50s and 60s in that era. But these were great people, and there's great people out there today. But the Democratic Marxists wants to shut all that down. All right, this is what Obama said over the weekend. And again, hold your laughter as much as you can. Oh, okay, folks, I'm getting it. Barack Obama has repaired the economy and kept unemployment low amid 8.2% spike in prices. Inflation has gone from 1.4% when Biden took office to 8.2% in September. That was the headline. Obama forgot to mention the 8.2% inflation rate and where it was when Biden took office. Obama made the comments in Pennsylvania trying to help John Fetterman get over his... Did you guys see that video? He gets up to speak and the wind blows all the American flags down. Yeah. Is that an omen? All right, Obama said, think about what Joe Biden has already got accomplished. Yeah, we do. Every day. Despite historic pandemic, he not only repaired the economy and kept unemployment low, which, by the way, you should not take for granted because a lot of folks thought that the historic pandemic like that and the shutdown, we would have potentially gone into a Great Depression, and we did not. You see how they make things up? Obama also said that Biden has lowered health care and prescription drug costs and passed an infrastructure bill that will put more folks here in Pennsylvania and around the country to work and make our economy stronger. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, just ignore the facts. Make up your own story that's expedient for you today. Just totally ignoring the truth. Now, I can tell you right now, with my experience, that healthcare costs and prescription drug prices have not gone down. They've gone up. And everybody out there knows that. But they're going to stand there and tell you that Biden is your God now and you should bow to him. It's exactly what they're doing. All right, I got a good time. Let me, Elon Musk took over Twitter. I've kind of stayed away from this. See how it pans out. He's being attacked from everybody. And he laid off a bunch of people, and they're suing, said you didn't give us enough notice. Well, hello, he gave you 2 or 3 months notice, saying when I come in, I'm going to be laying people off. Anyway, they've sued. But now the United Nations urges Elon Musk to ensure human rights are central to companies' management. Well, the UN, you can go back to your tower in New York and stuff it. Stay out of our affairs. Ensure human rights. We in America, nobody has a right to a job. You earn it. Now, the United Nations Human Rights Chief, or Twitter's chief twit, here they go name calling again, to stand up for the right to privacy and stress that Twitter has a responsibility to avoid amplifying content that results in harming other people. So now they want to tell Elon Musk how to run his company. Well, if you want to invest in it, then maybe you'll have a seat at the table. But now, Zuckerberg announced on Friday at Facebook Metaverse he's going to lay off this week, folks, thousands of workers. Well, where's the United Nations? I haven't heard anything. They're not coming after him and his human rights violations. Oh, but he's given them a few days' notice. Well, so did Elon Musk when he started buying the company, put in a contract. I'm going to be laying off a bunch of you. Now, also, CNBC reports that Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett, their operating earnings jumped 20%, and the conglomerate is going to buy back another $1 billion in stock. Well, now, wait a minute. Excuse me. The oil companies apparently had record earnings, and they're going to buy back stock of their companies, but the Democratic Marxists are jumping all over them for it. Why aren't they jumping all over Warren Buffett for doing the same thing? Because he's one of them. Even though he moves tons and tons and tons of crude oil and natural gas every year on his railroad. That's why one of the reasons the Keystone Pipeline was shut down, because Warren Buffett was going to lose all his business with the railroad he owned up there that hauled it all. So which is safer, a pipeline or a railroad? It's interesting, isn't it? Folks, I'm going to have to pick this up tomorrow. But the one thing that I want to do to close this show out, in honor of our veterans, is to play taps. And I'm going to do this every day this week. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to play taps, and then I'm going to close it out. God is near. And that, folks, is the Medlock Post Radio Show for today. May God bless America, and may God bless our veterans.